webcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, and welcome to this deep dive to Newlook Server. I'm Nick Hampson. I'll be your host, and we'll be starting in just 1 minute. We'll just give time for a couple more people to arrive. So if you just hang on for 1 minute, we'll make a start. Okay, I think we've probably got everybody in now, so let's make a start with this. So I'm going to do a quick intro, and then we're going to look into Newlook Server, or Look Server as people have been probably used to it in the past. We've just changed the name now to have some more kind of consistent branding across the products. So we're going to have a look at how it works, what it can do. This really will be a deep dive, so we'll be going into files, looking at things, how the product works, what it can do. We'll have a quick slide on mobile and web thinking. So for anybody who's not done this stuff before, just some things to think about to make anything you do quicker, easier, more compelling. Just a mention of the rest of the items in the webinar series and a quick Q&A. And we've got a couple of polls as we go along as well, so we'll get through those too. In fact, straight into the poll, I'll select the first poll and I'll launch this one. This is, where do your mission critical business applications run today? And if you can check all that apply here, we're just trying to get some gauges to how our existing customers, what they're working with, so we can make sure that the development work we're doing and tooling and ideas and services is focused around that. So I'll just give this a few seconds more to go. Okay, so I'll close that off now, and I can share the results with you to show you that just quickly. So a lot of people using Windows, some people's using Linux and cloud, and very few people with other, and obviously the majority there with IBM I. 89% of you apparently, so there's 11% of people who don't have Look software products on the call. That's should be interesting. So let's move on. An intro to the Newlook Server architecture. Newlook Server has been around for a long time, since 2006, but because of the limitations of the web in the past and to some extent today, a large majority of our customers have taken the client route with the Newlook Smart Client to this point, which is obviously a direct communication with the IBM I, and using all the facilities we have in the blue area here. Now, Newlook Server has pretty much all of the same capabilities, but sits on a Windows server and produces a pure HTML front end, which deals with HTML5 desktop, HTML5 mobile, and web services. Now, we'll be going in web services in a later one, and today I'm just going to deal with HTML5 desktop and mobile. So, you know, that's the architecture in terms of anybody who's not familiar with that. Some quick things on differences. There are a lot of low-level things we could talk about, but the key differentiators here with the Smart Client versus Look Server today is really tight desktop integration. So having that ability to connect really tightly with the desktop, open existing desktop files up, take things from the desktop file system and have complete control of application APIs on the desktop is something that is unique to Smart Client, and browsers, really don't have a hope of getting anywhere near that in the near future. There's also some advantages in terms of just pure speed with things like keyboard buffering and type ahead that can't be supported in the browser. But the number of people today who are doing so fast heads down data entry that makes any difference to is becoming smaller and smaller every day. And you shouldn't think that Newlook Server is not a fast, productive environment for people. We are literally talking about people who are typing so fast they're not actually looking at the screen, and they know what fields they're filling in ahead of when they've actually seen them. So that's something in my 15 years with Look software I've seen, fairly rarely, to be honest. Multiple sessions that are connected to each other. So this is where in Smart Client we can have multiple sessions that actually talk to and control each other. With two browser-based sessions, they're sandbox, so we can't really talk in between them. And there are some minor properties and controls that are different in between them. So there's things like the range and slider controls that aren't implemented in HTML, and some properties like click and double click that you can't use in certain places with HTML. But there are also some properties with Look Server that you can use that are not available to Smart Client. So they're the core things, just so you're getting some good background info here. Obviously, one of the major pushes we've had over a while is people coming to us wanting to expand their Smart Client installation to use Newlook Server to be able to reach different people and different audiences, or just have an HTML version of their application. And this is not a big scary change for a lot of people. We're using the same SID file. The Newlook Server and the Newlook Smart Client and Developer all use the same SID file. It's exactly the same whatever you do. You can literally cut and paste in between the technologies, and it's pretty much going to work. There are things that won't be supported. Obviously, trying to do desktop integration from the browser is not going to be supported, but the majority of the efforts you have in general will be there. You can take the same @ folder if you followed that, so @ company name or @ product name, take that out of your program data Look Software 10.1 folder and copy it across to Look Server and point it at the SID file, and be pretty much good to go in terms of the core information in there. The skin can use the SmartFrame header image. Depending on how modern a SmartFrame you've got, it's probably not going to be the same size, so it might need a tweak or a new graphic there. The SmartFrame can't be used. We don't have a SmartFrame Look Server. We have the skin, which replaces that. And at this point in time, they are slightly different thing. They both use HTML5 and CSS, but because of the fact that they're two different technologies, and Look Server has to deal with the whole client space, not just the frame around the outside. The classes and things are different in that, so the styling is not something that you can copy and paste across straight away at this point in time. We probably will work to bring those closer into line at some point as soon as we can. But this is a pretty much, if you're moving across and you have a style, it's not a lot of work, and it's a one-off piece of work because they're all global items. So I want to I've got these here as a placeholders now for the recording for everybody, but I want to actually go into the product and do the rest of this rather than spend my time in PowerPoint. So we're going to look at Newlook Server now, the settings and licensing, look at the skins, the files and folders, and also talk about running multiple instances of Newlook Server and actually see a little bit of what it does. So I'll exit the PowerPoint and come across here into my Look Server environment. So if I get everything else out of the way here, this is the on my local PC, and it would be the same if this was on a Windows server. You've got the inetpub www root directory, and within that you'll have a currently Look Server 10.1. That's probably going to change in the next release to be Newlook Server 10.1. But within there are if I highlight all of this, all of these files which are delivered, and I've got a couple of sample solutions in here that I've already added. The one look demo you're actually going to see in a sec. So there's only these two top files that we've added in, and they're the standard kind of solution folders that we would have had with a smart client. They're done in exactly the same way. If we look in here, there's still ini SID files. There's actually a smart frame in here, even though we're not going to use it, and everything that was there before. It has quite literally been just cut and pasted across from the smart client into the Look server. Because we're not going to be using that smart client, smart frame, we'll need to apply some styling, and the skins are under this app themes directory. Now, the product's delivered with this postmodern skin, and we're going to be adding some more skins to that in the future. You see, I've got one here for our iPad, one called Material, which follows the Google Material Design Standards you're going to see in a sec, and one called Workspace. And we're going to be building these and adding them both to the website so that you can download for existing versions of Look Server, but more into the default releases as we go forward. We're going to be adding more and more of these things, and really nice modern look and feel ones that you just literally go and select. The rest of Look Server is pretty much like the stuff within the smart client that you don't need to look at. There's lots and lots of bits in here that make it run. You know, we can see Bootstrap here, jQuery, the images folder we used, some tables and settings. There's a default SID file that comes with the product here. But just so you understand what's going off here, there's a lookserver.config, which is a text file. And this is when you go into the Look Server settings, what you're altering. So this is very much equivalent to the settings in developer and the ini file that would be used. The Look Server doesn't have an ini file. If you copy that across from the smart client stuff, it's not going to do anything. It's all within here. And you can see shared repository history, graphical scheme, menu item, stuff like this. It's all in there. And that's something that we deal with within the Look Server settings. So if I go here to my installed instances of Look Server, then to get at the settings, it's literally going to be the IP address of the machine. And in this case, it's localhost because I'm local to this machine. Look Server 10.1 or whatever the instance is called. And then settings.aspx. And it will just give me then the settings area. So within the settings area, we have the repository where I can select the SID file. And you see this is the one that I brought in here, that look demo.sid. We can have a user SID as well. You just select it there, put the details in and press update. All ready to go. Sign-on information. If you want to put default sign-on information in here, you can do. It's somewhat of a legacy, like we have the sign-on information for the smart client product to auto sign on. It's not typically used now unless it's just a generic thing to get past the initial level. Display details. This really shows us a lot more information. So we've got things like the scaling, the graphical appearance, background, menu items, but also the skins that are available here. So the scaling is a percentage-based layout here, and it's based on the default size that Newlook's engine kind of thinks about, which is pretty much 640 around 640 by 480. Yeah, it's about that. So you know, we very rarely nowadays tend to run at 100% on this. It tends to be scaled up. But you know, around 120% will give you something that works as a decent size screen for most people now at a good size. So it just enables you to have a smaller or larger screen display based on that. The graphical appearance is the same as the color schemes within Smart Client, and in fact you can indirectly import a scheme into here. So if you've got it on the file system of the machine you're on, you can import a scheme, or you can manually change all the foreground and host colors, just like you could in the schemes that created the NLG. in the developer and smart client product. But the way we're moving now is to what we call skins, which are entire things, and they're much beyond just choosing foreground and background colors. You see, I've got one here for iPad. I've got this, it's actually the new one I've been developing here, the material one. You'll see it looks quite different from that. This is the postmodern one, a very kind of standard, kind of fairly plain look and feel. And then this is the more modern workspace look and feel with function keys and everything set up very much similar to the smart client and the smart frame technology that we've used for quite a while. And that's not just because we want them to look the same. These are based on design principles rather than we're more artistic design thing. They're really based on making them good. And to select a new skin is just literally a case of clicking down here. You can import skins so that when if you have an existing instance of Look Server that doesn't have so many in that they're available to you, can we just download them and import them in there. So nice and easy to do. Commands, the same kind of command history, and you can see some of the ones I've put in here. So they're added automatically to the combo drop downs. Preferences here, again, do you want to run a startup macro or do you want to run a specific connection? Standard server timeout here that's set. So if you want our server to time out more quickly and release licenses than your IBMI settings, you can do that here. Licensing, you just literally have a serial number here, send that to us, we'll supply an unlock code, and that will give you a number of licenses for a number of concurrent sessions. And you can then go in here and actually have a look at your peak count and peak time. You can also look at session information to see how many sessions are open at this point, all those kind of things, and actually close some of them if you need to. So, different from the smart client, that the actual server, the Windows server, is licensed here rather than licensing directly on the IBMI. And the main reason for that is with browser-based sessions, it's just not possible for us to tell as easily within the two. And it's actually quite easy for people to cheat that, what's going off there. So it's licensed there. And then I haven't got user permissions being switched on here, but you can set up the user role provider options here and add users to this, because the way Look Server works as standard, you can't edit the settings unless you're actually on the machine itself. So unless you're connected to the physical machine via the browser, it won't let you edit the settings. So so that users who are remote to that machine can't just find out what settings.aspx is and go and change things, and you can't hack it and change around those kind of things. But you can set these up so that people can log on remotely and make server changes to these settings without having to RDP or have a remote connection to the device. So the setting stuff is fairly simple. Other than the skins, it's pretty much exactly the same stuff as that was in the ini file or was in developer before. We've tried to make these things very, very similar. They don't all use the same files, but it's all fairly familiar stuff to anybody who's used the product before. And so I suppose really we should go and have a look at a couple of screens in the application. Just give it a sec. So this is a sign-on screen to our IBMI. Now I've created here a very modern look and feel based on the Google Material Design Standard. So this is how they're building their web systems now, how Android works. And I wanted to create something that was truly modern, that nobody could look at and say there's an AS400 behind there or that's IBMI. We wanted to see something that could be truly modern. But this is based on the Bellamy demo, which anybody who's ever seen anything we do before will have seen, and I'll actually show again in a different while. So there's a skin added to this, and we've made some customization. So I've added a graphic to the sign-on screen and some text here. This is HTML text running here. This is not an image that's on there. And I can go in here and add my details, press the OK. I've then got a menu, and these are IBMI menu items, but I've styled them very differently. So I've added some CSS here that makes them these blocks that run in line with each other, so they flow across the screen no matter how many of them are. And individually, based on the text inside here, it's adding different icons to each one. So this takes a little bit of effort. This took about 20 minutes to figure out how to do it. But it's fairly simple. It's very repeatable once you've done it, and now I've done it, nobody else has to figure out how to do that. So, there are things like that you don't have to do. You can see menus in their normal style as Look Server and Newlook Client have always had them, but you can completely reimagine things with a little bit of CSS. And if you don't know CSS, I'll show you some in a bit. It's not scary. I'm saying this as a non-developer type person. It's very, very simple, human readable syntax. And if it is something that's you're not familiar with, it's so easy to get hold of somebody who does know how to use it for a small amount of money and get what you want. And because it's globally applied, you're not doing lots and lots of work to get that running. So anyway, we'll move on into a app screen here. So this is one of the core screens, and we've demoed this lots and lots because it shows good things. But what you can see here is these are tabs on the screen, and they're showed in a different style. They don't have the bit across the top. They just have the highlight item here. We've got the field that's entry capable on the screen. If I tab with a keyboard, so I'm pressing the tab key now, you can see it underlines and highlights. I've got nice icons being picked up here. We also have icons based on the function key as well here. So if you have consistency in your function keys, you'll notice we have these icons against them. And again, that's been added by the template. So all we're doing here is saying, if we have an F3 for exit, every time you do that, put the button down here and give it this back arrow icon. So, really, really quick, easy things to do. And these are using some nice modern technologies. This is using web fonts. So no matter how dense your display is or what size that's produced at, it will be pixel perfect. It's not something that as soon as you put it on a retina type display is an image that's going to look bad. So, we can give things that great modern look and feel if we want to put some effort into it. You see this screen has a tombstone and images and stuff against it and has been worked on. But I've also got a standard menu here with the items actually still on them if we want to work on them like that. And our good old demo thing, which we have, drop down combos, dates, subfiles with right click options, all of that kind of stuff, the numeric ranges here. And again, this is out the box recognition now, just with this global styling applied. So even a screen that's not been touched at all, like this one, this is a fairly CUA compliant screen. So we're picking up recognition of things, but nothing's been done here other than global recognition. And it looks like a nice modern system. So there's a lot that can be done there with these skins, and it's something that we're going to be putting quite a bit of work in to supply some nice templates so that there's really very little for you guys to do other than maybe change a couple of colors and stick your logo in there and have a really, really nice modern looking system. And, we'll provide a few different styles. Obviously, this might not be everybody's cup of tea. So what do those skins look like? Well, if we go up here, in the app themes area, there are basically the skins are just within a folder. So, you can create your own here by just copying and pasting one of these. There's nothing really rocket science in them. Within the folder itself is this skin.config. And this is when you see the skins on the selection screen, it uses this image and this skin.config, which is just an XML file, to populate that. So it has a name here, it has a snapshot of what the image is, an author, a description, a version number, and a date. And that's pretty much all there is to do. So you can create your own just by copying that. And then we have a CSS and a JavaScript folder. So the JavaScript folder in this case, there's nothing in here. There's a skin.js, but it's blank. It's not doing anything. There's nothing happening there. But in the CSS folder, I have fonts that I'm using. They're creating all those images you saw on the screen. And then I have the skin.css and this material.css.template. So you can just have a CSS file, but the template file enables us to do one unique thing. And that is with Look Server, a 24 by 18, a 27 by 132 screen, because they're so different in the amount of data. We render the text at the same size. So the width and height of the 27 by 132 will be larger. And we have a couple of system values that enable us to look at the width and height and use those within this template file, and they get translated on the fly. And that enables, if you have those buttons in the bottom right hand corner, the OK, exit and cancel, for them to be in the correct place based on the screen size. So that's the only capability that we're using within this template file. Other than that, we're just using standard CSS, and in fact the majority of it's in here. If we want to open this up in Notepad, you can see here where these font face things, this is using those glyph icons. So these are icons that have pictures inside them. Once this bit's put in at the top, which we've already done, it's really, really easy. All you have to do is go and select the icon you want to go and use at the time. And this is where we're using that value, content height and content width here, to be able to position things in the right place. So that's the only thing that's not standard CSS. If you're not dealing with multiple screen sizes, or if you're not doing special positioning of items, you don't even need to use that. And you can see the rest of it is very, very standard. If we look at this look header left, which had that logo in it, it says position absolute, width and height, background color, image location, background position, overflow hidden. CSS, it can take a little bit of getting used to, but it is fundamentally very, very human readable. It really isn't something to be scared of. It can look a bit more complicated when we get down to these specific box shadows and things like this, but this has just been abbreviated to make it shorter to do a specific effect. And nowadays, a lot of these things, when you find the thing you want, you can literally just cut and paste it in, as I did there, because I can guarantee you I didn't go and work all that out myself. So CSS really, really something not to be scared of. I've seen people code in RPG, and RPG is certainly more complicated and harder to learn than CSS. And for the majority of the time, you'll be able to take these templates that we're going to give you and just make small tweaks to them to be able to create a great UI in general. So, I don't think that's something that's going to be really, really hard there. In terms of how that works at the developer side, I'll open up the developer and we'll have a look at what's different in between Smart Client and Newlook Server, and we'll show you some of those capabilities. So at the high level, one of the things you've been able to do since V10 is look at the device sizes and have these specific app sizes here. And we're going to be tweaking these a bit in the future to be able to be a bit more flexible to them. But the default size will only work for Smart Client, and the default size will also work for Look Server. But within Look Server, we can also have any size of screen we want. In Look Server, you can have a much bigger, longer form if you want to. So you can have a big, long scrolling form. All of those size limitations that the Smart Client, because it's doing a direct understanding for desktop only, Look Server doesn't have any of those limitations. So, we can have a much different size item in there. So that's the first thing to be aware of, that we can make a specific size here, and we can do some of the mobile sizes. So we can go and pick a And if we look at here an iPhone web app, you can see what size it is on the screen there, and then it makes it easy to understand how you would position stuff on the screen to make that work. I'll just flip back and undo that. So let's just take it back to that. That'll do for a start. And we look at the lower level in terms of the actual field properties. I set this one up so that we were at the right place here. Anything that is specific to Newlook Server will have an orange label on it. So if you look here where it's in, it will say thin client only capability. So we have some capabilities here to be able to add stuff to the screen to make things work better for this more modern web browser implementation, be that desktop or mobile. The first one is CSS class, and it's important to understand you don't have to use any of these. These are not forcing you to do anything. They're just useful extras that provide a lot more depth and capability if you want. So if you want to individually style some specific fields on the screen different from that standard style that we'd set up, you can create a new class in the skin.css and just make the tweak. And the tweak might be just, I want these fields to have a different background color. And then you can go in here and you can add a CSS class or classes to these fields. So I could go in and call this one Nick. If only I could use upper and lower case OK. And that field will now have appended to its class of look input field, or whatever it is. It's probably not look input field, we shouldn't say that. Another class of Nick, which I can then target to maybe change the color or the styling or do something that helps me do whatever I need to do there. So again, not something you need to do because this is individual level changes, but it enables you to add that very, very easily. The input type, this is very important for mobile. If we have a look in here, the input types are none, which is the standard, which just works normally, email, number, search, telephone, and URL. And what these do on a mobile device is they bring up the correct keyboard. So the URL one will bring up, it always has .com on it and it has the dot ready in there. If you bring up the number one, it brings up the numeric part of the keyboard. On a phone, it's just the numeric part. On a tablet, it has the numeric part ready to go. It's much, much quicker to type in if the keyboard is correct for the fields that you're going to use. And it may only seem like a small thing, but when you get down to using the product as an end user, these are big things. They make life a lot better for people. So it's just really, really easy for you to select these things here. And these are all standard HTML5 capabilities we're exposing in the product. The placeholder field enables us to add what's called placeholder text. And this is something that in the past was done with JavaScript and it was buggy and complicated. And now it's available with HTML5. It actually puts text into the field until you type. So on a telephone or a smartphone, often you're quite limited for space. You can actually put an example for all of the input fields of the kind of value you'd want in that field. But you don't have to do any clever stuff with it. As soon as the user starts typing, it just disappears automatically. So it's a really, really good way if you want to create a nice learnable application, which mobile applications specifically have to be very, very small, if not no learning curve at all. It really helps to be able to do that because you put sample values or you put what you're expecting into the field just by typing in a piece of text here. And we could put in this one username, I could put in here, John Smith or whatever it might be, in my case, be Hampson, so that there's an existing value in there so they can see the type of thing they want to do. So really, really useful capability there. Another point, because this is a deep dive and we want to tell you some stuff, the name property in here can also be used. If you add that into there, it will actually create an HTML5 name tag. So this enables you to separate styling from content. So if you add a name there, it enables you, if you want to be able to add some JavaScript interaction to that field that's not standard, you can refer to the name value rather than having to just refer to the CSS class. And it's one of these things about good architecture. People in the past have always referred with JavaScript and jQuery to CSS classes, but that can be limiting and you get a lot of false positives and too many classes. So the idea is to have a name to be able to work on, which is separate. So interaction separated from styling. So again, not something you have to be able to do, but these are all web standard technologies. So, if you want to be able to do any of these things and learn them, there's loads of easy, go onto lynda.com and pick all these things up really easily. You might have somebody who has web stack technology in your company. You don't have to use them, but, we're really opening the product up to make, if you want to do simple, compelling things to create applications on web or mobile, you can do. If you want some more power and some more juice in there, you're not going to run out and you're not going to have to be kind of coding around the product. We provide the power to get under the covers where you wish to do that. So that's some of the capabilities within the product there that are kind of thin client only. And you'll notice if we come up to here, if I go down on events, we can't see any on this particular one, but on events in general, here we go. If we look at these, any items that have blue on them are smart client only. So for smart client and not thin client, the timer and resize event, deactivate and activate events are only for those. So you can also see where there are things, if you're moving from smart client to Newlook Server to do an extra project, as you move things across, you'll be able to see if something's not supported there. They're not typically things that would cause you an issue. There's no great level of difference here. I picked the events because that's one area that I specifically knew there were things there that we could do. The other part of this is when we talk about things like having a smart client with desktop integration, that we may need to differentiate in between smart client and thin client Newlook Server implementations. And if, as you save a screen, some of you may have seen this or may not, because it's in the options. As you save a form for the first time, or you go into save as to go back to it, you can apply any override to any client, or you can just say, I only want this version to work for Smart Client. So you could have a version in a single zip file, one that works for Smart Client with desktop integration, and then another one for Thin Client that doesn't have the desktop integration or has the level that's capable within the browser. So there are some nice capabilities there, and these have been here for ages. In fact, they've been there for that long. This mobile client one is really, it's a legacy for dealing with really, really old mobile. This is not smart, what we would consider smartphones anymore. These are the old Windows Mobile 7 devices and things like that. They're really dumb smart devices. So you would put thin client if it was anything that is web capable nowadays. This mobile one is literally old support for really, really old technologies there. And at the same level, if you're creating or you have existing macros and scripts, the macros and scripts within the product can, as they run, look at the client that they're running in. So part of the object model is smart client and thin client. So you can tell the difference. So you could have, if you have existing integration, you could have have some logic in there that says, if I'm on smart client, then just run as normal. Actually, if I'm on thin client, then I can only do this, or go and hide the button, whatever it may be. So, a lot of people are not aware of that as they move across those features where if you try and run them, the macro may fail, that you can just have, a simple part at the top of that looks at, what is this I'm running on? Do I need to try and do this or not? So there really is a very good set of capabilities to be able to take Smart Client across to Newlook Server for existing files. And, I do this a lot of the times when I do demos for people, because people will now often want to see both. And, we will show them I can show you an example here. If I look at the Bellamy screens, this is the Bellamy old smart frame running on the smart client. So I put my details in here and go to the sign on screen here, or the menu screen. I'll just bring across this. I've directly copied and pasted this across. I've added a skin, but this is running on Newlook Server. This is a cloud instance of Newlook Server. If I go in here and put in my details, this is the same thing running from Newlook Server. And if I pull across the two here, you'll see, whoops, lost it behind the screen. They're almost exactly the same. They're not necessarily pixel perfect in a couple of ways. There are some things that are slightly different, but you can literally take projects from the desktop and cut and paste them across. I took the same graphic and added it in here and be going very, very quickly and easily. And this is using the workspace skin, and this one uses a very similar look and feel. So, those things, it is fairly easy to be able to do that. Obviously, there will be, if you've got desktop integration, that is either not going to work or it won't work in the same way. We need to look at a different way of doing that. But a lot of the refacing and integration technologies, and certainly where Newlook Server can talk to the IBM the DDM, the RPC, all of that stuff is exactly the same as it used to be. There's all of the capabilities there with Newlook Server are, exactly the same there. So we've been through that. You've seen the files and folder. Just talk quickly about multiple instances. So if I open up, I was running in my local disk. If I go in here, inetpub ww root, you saw the Newlook software, Newlook Server 10.1. This was where everything was. You'll notice I have quite a lot of other ones in here, and these are just other demos. Some of them old versions of the product, but you can, and then we'll do a document on this because I think we know how to do it, but I don't think we've shared it with many people. It's not in the product documentation. You can, if you shut down the web server, literally copy and paste this folder, start the web server up again, go into the IIS config and actually turn the folder into a web application, and then go and reset the properties on 2 files. And you have then another instance of Newlook Server, and these instances share their licensing. So, if you wanted to test something out, or you wanted to have 2 URLs people were hitting, one for mobile, one for desktop, then you can do that from a single server, and they're just literally a different URL. They will share the licensing in between them, but they're totally standalone versions of that. The only got you with that is because then you've created a copy that we don't know anything about. It's not something that our installation and uninstallation process will understand. So there is some manual effort. If you want to then go and install a new version, you would have to uninstall Newlook Server 10.1 and then install the new version and, do some stuff. But, we're just talking about a bit of cut and paste, and nobody's probably going to have as many as I would because, this is just because we do lots of demos. But it is certainly for testing things a very useful capability to have, and in a lot of other cases useful to be able to have multiple instances. But understand that if you update the installation of Newlook Server on the machine, it will not update all the other instances because it's not in control of all the other folders you created. It only, the installation process cannot understand things that you've done while it's not running. So, there's no easy part to that at the moment. And because we use the MSI technology, we can only do a single installation. And that's something that it's a requirement for many people when they run on Windows Server, but at the same time, it stops us being able to do some simple updating. But it is something that, we couldn't just have an executable on a Windows server. It does need to be a fully functioning MSI. So just so everyone's clear on that. So I'll just go back into this now and go into developer. So we talked about override options, properties, macros and scripts, form sizes. Developer preview was the one I missed there. It's always good to have something to back you up, isn't it? So we do have all here developer previews for any browsers you have installed, and you can see I've got them all installed here, as well as if you have a mobile device, you can use a QR code to get directly to it, or this URL. So there is the proper Look server, the full Look server that will be used for the runtime installation for many users accessing, but there is now an embedded developer version which will work for a single person accessing that and doesn't require you to do any installation. It can be very useful, but at this point in time, it doesn't support the skins that the production Look server does, and it doesn't support the size scale changes. So it can be useful from the point of view of looking what the screen looks like and getting the recognition and the spacing and everything right, but it won't have the final styling and size at this point, and that's something that will, as we keep on moving these things forward, we'll add there to make sure that, this pretty much gives everyone a mini Look server, and we'll keep adding to that to make sure those capabilities continue to get better and better. So let's move on. Talking quickly about web and mobile. For a lot of people who've just done desktop in the past, web and mobile can seem really daunting. It doesn't have to be. There's not a lot of scary stuff out there that you really need to worry about. You need to think about the size. So when you work on a smaller device, you probably need to provide more simple screens, more easy to understand screens. You need to think about the navigation. Navigation, especially on mobile devices, smartphones and tablets, you must try and make it easy. Don't put 5 steps in between the processes, lots and lots of menu depth. Give them a single menu that lets them do the things that they want to do. Don't underestimate these devices. A lot of people of our generation can think of mobile as a device for viewing things and not a productivity device, and that couldn't be further from the truth. A friend of mine has an 18-year-old daughter who can type faster on her BlackBerry than I can on a full-size keyboard. So, the new generation of people coming into businesses, these devices are genuine productivity tools. They may not be for all of us, but for the people that are using them in the future, they truly are. Think about the number of screens you want to give people. Typically, if you've got a big 2,500 screen ERP system, people who are accessing it outside or remotely, mobile-wise, won't need a lot of that. You don't need to go and reface 2,500 screens for mobile. You maybe just want to give them 30 to 50 screens that are useful for them. If they're external desktop web users, they may need access to the entire system, but then again, if you've used Smart Client already, your desktop SID will do all of that work for them. And the recognition quality with Newlook Server is exactly the same. For mobile and simplicity, think about the amount of detail and the amount of data. You really need to try and be ruthless in cutting the amount of information down to make the data you are available on these small devices what is useful to that person. What do they actually need? Not what might they need on the one occasion, but what do they need every day? And go for the common case when you're doing this, because you'll be able to make much more simple screens. And what we say to a lot of people is, what would be useful from your internal systems to people outside of the company or outside of the office? Because there's an enormous amount of value in your internal systems that's not necessarily accessible to people today. If salespeople could access these things directly from their mobile devices, from any browser-based interface, would that be useful to you? Do you have people that could do some of their work from home via an HTML-based interface? They could be connecting in via VPN, but it enables them to access via any browser they want. Do you have customers and partners and suppliers that might be able to enter data directly into your system if you give them a simple web-based interface to do that? So, for a lot of people, there's more value in their IBMI systems than they think. It's just because typically they've been limited to being internal to the system, or even external people are accessing via a green screen look and feel. So important stuff to look at. And, we're quite happy to engage with any of our customers, and you're all customers on this call. If there's things you think, you're not sure of, you want to ask us. We see these systems. This is what we do all day, every day. And of course, we'd all like to take your money and sell you more licenses. But the reality behind, the reasons why we're doing this is because, the web is crucial to a lot of people's future. And, we can offer a lot of value with, external systems. And we want our customers to be happy and to love what they do with our technologies. So, if there's anything there we can do to help, please get in touch with your sales rep, get in touch with whoever you're dealing with in the company, or get in touch with me. I'll give my details at the end of this, and ask the question. There may be nothing, but we are always open to, to be able to see how we can help. It's the joy of our life to make our customers happy. So, another poll quickly. And this one is a much more simple poll. We're looking at server and cloud-based environments. So for anybody who's a Smart Client user, an existing Newlook Server or Look Server user in their own systems, would you be interested in this as a cloud-based solution? It's something that we want to be able to understand, to see how people would go with this. We don't think this is going to be, if there's a lot of interest in it, this won't be we're just going to do that and nobody can have it locally anymore. It's more a case of expanding the offerings to be able to deal with this as cloud becomes more ubiquitous for people. And really the idea behind it is, if there's another piece of technology that you don't have to worry about, and for a lot of people, this might actually include their IBMI going into the cloud, that instead of spending time polishing the top of a black box, which never crashes and you never have to worry about, you can spend that time offering more value to the business. And that's really IT's value proposition today, is making your business more productive and competitive than other people's, your competition's business, making your users happier, not dusting the top of a black box. So, I'll close that now. So I'll share the results on that. Quite a few people say yes, some no, some possible, which is pretty much what I'd expect. I don't think everybody would take this up if we're having more of a look at this now. We just wanted to get some more information, just to have a bit of backup as to, what we thought the level of interest would be to do this. And it's just going to be another service, similar to the ones we already offer, with being able to have this on your own site. And it's all going to be down to, providing for our customers the best thing possible. So, poll over. I've gone through the majority of stuff I wanted to show there. In fact, all of the things I wanted to show. Just a mention of the deep dive into web services in a couple of weeks' time. How to move your projects forward with no time and no people, February the 10th. That'll be the producing something out of nothing webinar, where I'll be getting my magician's hat on. Integrate and open your IBMI on Feb 24th. So they're all upcoming, and if you want to sign up for them, please feel free. And we'll go over now to any Q&A that people have got. So what we want to do now is I'll answer any questions anybody's got, and I can see one here. Can you give us the video and the presentation about the webinars? So, yep, This is being recorded now and will go up to marketing and should be available for watching. I think it's usually via Vimeo. We'll provide a link to everybody within a few days. Certainly at the start of next week, there'll be a recorded version of this available that everyone can access. And, I'll probably do a little bit of follow-up on some of the items as well. We'll provide a couple more things as follow-up to that. So, yes, that'll definitely be available very soon. And if we've got any more questions, I'll just hang on for a sec if anybody's got any burning questions. Oh, is a good one. Does it support master forms? Yep, absolutely. Newlook Server supports master forms. I think specifically it depends on how you've used master forms, whether it's going to be the right thing to continue to use a master form. If you're sticking with browser-based desktop and you've used a master form instead of using the smart frame, then absolutely it's a straight cut and paste across, nothing to do. In fact, it literally is cut and paste and everything's done for you. If you're looking to go across to tablet and mobile, you can still use master forms and they're still supported. But where people have used master forms instead of using the smart frame, that will not give you an optimal experience for mobile. I've seen a few people put master forms on an iPad, and technically it will work, but what you've got to think is if you sit on a device like an iPad or an Android tablet, you have to follow the design language of that thing. You have to have the buttons that are optimized for mobile use. You have to think about the size and display of the screen, the touch capabilities, and where the keyboard will come up, things like that. And that's where the smart frames that have been used to follow the master form would fall down. But certainly from a desktop point of view, and in terms of are they supported, yeah, absolutely. There's very few controls that aren't supported in Look Server. Okay. And will there be a more detailed document release for the new features? Look Server, a sort of Look Server for dummies. Okay, well, we won't be doing a Look Server for dummies because our customers are generally not dummies. But a lot of this stuff is already in the help. The major thing with this is to make sure you've got the right version of the developer to be able to do it. There are some documents on the customer area of the website on this, and we've been doing a big project lately just to give you all the info to add more testing people to the team. And that's taken some of the time from Judy, who's one of our key document writers, doing that. So she's probably got a bit of a backlog on a couple of these things, but you should see that cert to change soon because those people, as of the start of the year, are pretty much up and running and ready to go. Another one, do we need different solutions or skins to make available for multiple devices? Or will this eventually be responsive through media queries on the CSS? Okay, so that's a more technical question. And the answer to that is we can use media queries in the CSS already, and we can do some level of responsiveness. Certainly, if you want to do desktop and full-size tablet, they can be done from one piece of effort and one skin that does have basically two pieces of CSS and a media query. If you don't know what they are, they just look at the size of the screen and they say, if it's this size screen, do this. If it's this size screen, do something else. So in essence, you can almost have kind of two different styles and based on the screen, choose which one you're going to use on the fly. So yes, we can do that. we deal with different sizes by using automatic sizing and scaling. So if you're doing work for mobile, you don't necessarily need to do one for iPhone and one for Android or anything like that. We don't at this point in time have we can do it, but I'm kind of crossing my fingers and a little bit to say that it's much harder to create a single solution where we are exactly today that will do desktop, tablet, and mobile. It is possible to some extent, but I think for a lot of our customers it would be more complicated than they want to do. They'd want to have two instances and have one for mobile phones and the other one for tablet and desktop. But it is the focus of the work that we're doing research on that at the moment, and the next quarter's development is all about mobile and web technology. So you can expect to see some good advancements in there in Q2 in the things that come out in the product. When will the advanced skins be ready? Okay, that's a good question. The skins will be the couple of skins that you've seen and I've looked at today are pretty much ready to go. They're just because I've done them, and I tend to build these things for demos. The CSS is probably a little bit untidy, and we wouldn't want to subject a customer directly to that. So they'll need a little bit of cleanup. They should be in the next release, the one that will be ready for just before the end of April. For anybody who wants them, if you're happy to have them as is, then I will forward the thing to my contact details. We want people to be able to have these things. I'm quite happy to talk to anybody who wants one of the skins that we've got, explain what I know to be working, how it works, what it does, and we'll give you a copy straight away. So if anybody wants them, you don't have to wait. The waiting process will come as the next release happens. They have to go through a big testing phase with the testing team and be nice and tidy and simple for everybody to use in every scenario and well documented, which is what they're not today. But there are several working skins that people are welcome to have, which will either do what you need or provide the basis to that if you wish. So my details should be on the screen now, nick.hampson@freshlegacy.com. If you want to drop me an email, we can have a chat. I'm more than happy to give you a copy of those. The CSS, they don't break anything. They just might not be at this point in time the most beautifully written CSS. So I think we're out of questions and about up on time there. So thank you very much, everyone, for your time. If you do have any questions, anything you want to deal with, get in touch with your sales rep. If it's more of a technical question or you don't want to get the sales rep involved, my details are on the screen there. I'm the product manager. It's my job to make our customers happy. Please feel free to get in touch. I'd love to hear from you. And thank you for your time today, and goodbye.